Hello, this is Shari Carroll here to bring you a card idea using the Simon Says Stamps February 2013 card kit. This is the finished card I made. I created this little flower with a stem and used some hearts for its leaves. And here's a peek of the detail so you can see it a little bit closer up. To start off, I chose some of the papers from the card kit that I wanted to use that would go well together. I've chosen some bold patterns and some light patterns, and I'm also using my heart die from Simon Says Stamps. So as you can see, I have just a really good mix of different papers. One of the items that really attracted me to this kit was this little flower, and it's got like a dotted line and a solid line. So here I'm using the Desert Storm paper that's in the kit, and I'm using my Versamark ink and just tapping it to the stamp. And I like to go over a couple times. If you ever watch my videos, I always make sure I have the best coverage possible on my ink. So now I'm just pressing it down onto the cardstock, and you can see it doing the watermark trick that it does. But I will be using white embossing powder on this, and while I'm stamping, and I usually do this on most of my projects, I stamp a couple times so that I have a few extras just in case. Okay, so once I have that stamped, I have a tub here with my white embossing powder, and it has a little plastic spoon. And I'll just go ahead and sprinkle this onto the cardstock. I'll show you here in a second. And the powder will just stick to the Versamark really perfectly. And even with those little tiny fine lines, our Hero Arts white embossing powder is absolutely the best. So now I'm just heat setting it with my heat tool. Alright, so I went ahead and stamped my little flower on some of my other papers that I've picked out for this card, and I've went ahead and cut them out, and I've used a little bit of foam tape, and so now I'm stacking the layers right back up using the little foam squares. So I've kind of alternated the paper, so I have the brown on the back and then a light color paper on the top, and then I used like a more tan color, and then with that kind of peachy red pink is on the very top. And I'm going ahead and adding another little foam square here to the very center, and I'll just be putting this back together just as I cut it out. So you'll be able to follow the lines once you see it up close. So it's really a cute flower. I wanted to add some visual interest to the background of my card, so here I use the Simon Says Stamps, and it's a gradated heart, and it goes on a full sheet of cardstock. So when I cut it out, it was a full sheet this way, and then I just cut them in half. I also have these great little pieces that I'm going to put on the inside of the card as confetti. Another die that I used from Simon Says Stamps is these 4 hearts, and I used it on this tin type looking paper. And these will become the petals to my little flower here. So it's one of the smaller hearts, and then I just cut them in half. So I'm going to go ahead and re-trim this so it fits my stem perfectly. And this is where my fingers, I feel so fumbly when I'm doing this, but I'm using a Zig pen glue stick, or glue pen. And this is a great little pen when you have just really small areas to work in. And I just go ahead and just put a few dots down, and it is a wet glue. I've got my little petal stuck. So once you have that in place, you have to hold it down for a little bit, just with your fingers. Kind of like a glossy accents, but not as permanent as glossy accents. So go ahead and just press that down, and then I'm going to trim off the bottom. Oh, but that's not quite dry, so I'll just press this down for a second longer. So you kind of have to give this a chance to dry just a bit. But once it takes hold, then you're fine. Now I can go ahead and trim the bottom, and so I just want that flush with the bottom of the card. And so now I can start adding my little heart petals. And so the left one will go like this, and again I'll just use my Zig glue pen, and I'll just do a few dots. And I can touch that with my finger, pick it up, and now I can go ahead and place that down. And I'll go ahead and do the same to the other side, or the other petal. So now I'm going to be stamping my greeting, and this says "Too much love for just one day," and I've already put my stamp onto my block, and I'm using the Wet Cement Mid-Tone ink by Hero Arts. And this stamp goes perfectly across a 4 1/4 width card. So here I'm just tapping up the ink onto my stamp, and I have some scrap paper here, which is 4 1/4 inches wide. And so I can go ahead and just stamp that on. And this was my first image, even with a new stamp, and I got a really great impression. So now I'll just have to trim this up with my paper trimmer. And I'm just eyeballing it just to get about the same width from the top to the bottom so the message sits center on the strip. And once I have that done, I'm going to back this with some really cute stripe paper. So how I like to do this is once I have my message stamped, I usually do my message first, and then I'm using a repositionable tape here, and I'm going to go ahead and put it down onto the paper and line that up really well. Oh, I want to change my mind. I want the red border at the side. So that stripe on the left side, if you can see it right now, it doesn't, I want it to be red on the very edge. Okay, so now I'll just go ahead and run it through my trimmer. And again, I'll be eyeballing it. And like I said, I did use repositionable tape from my tape runner, so I can kind of readjust this if I need to, which I do. So I just can go ahead and pull this off and then reposition that to where my little stripes are even from top to bottom. And I'll tell you, the little stripes really make a punchy look to this. It really brings out the whole greeting. So now just hand trim the end with my scissors, and it's ready to mount onto my card. Also, my paper trimmer, I need to change my blade, and sometimes it leaves a little rough edge, so I just kind of run my scissors up the side and take off the rough edges. So here I'm just going to add some foam dots, and I'll go ahead and mount that to my card. Since I had all these great scraps sitting around, I thought it would be kind of fun just to add something to the inside of my card. So here I just have another strip of that stripe paper and my tape runner, and I'll just go ahead and put this down. It's kind of random. I haven't measured anything. I just have some scraps that are sitting here. And since I die cut my hearts all together with the 4 hearts together, I always end up with extra hearts. So this is a great way to use those up. You can also put some of the trimmings on your envelope too as well, and I'll show you that in the final picture. So here's a look at the final card, and if you notice the card's sitting on the envelope, and I did use a glue stick to put my scraps down because I do want them to hold really well through the mail. And here's another look at the detail shot, and you can see how those little tiny die cut hearts really add to the background. Well, that's it for today. I hope you've enjoyed my card and my take on the February Simon Says Stamps card kit. Thanks for watching.